Hello everybody. I just wanted to acknowledge a huge milestone that this channel just passed. I'm recording this 10 years to the day after June 24th, 2009, which is when I released the very first episode of the B-Movie Rollout, a review of the movie Braddock Missing in Action 3 after an all-night editing session. One of many for that review. So I just wanted to go through a few mildly interesting stories from behind the scenes on this show from over the years. The idea for the show came from three places. The first, I guess, was one night in my first year of college. I was just up watching YouTube videos, and I stumbled across a video by the Angry Video Game Nerd, James Rolfe. And I'm not a big gamer, so I didn't think I was gonna like it, but it was hilarious. And I started going through that guy's channel, and I found all kinds of videos I enjoyed, and I just became a big fan and started watching James's videos. And from him, I found Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critics channel, and I also enjoyed a lot of those videos. So in 2008, I found these two guys who are now big name content creators, and I found them when they were more or less just beginning, and I really enjoyed the videos they did. And it wasn't too long after that I kind of got it in my head that maybe I could do this. I have some thoughts on movies. Maybe I could record myself making jokes like that. And I actually attempted a video series before the B-Movie rollout. In late 2008, I started a series about one of my favorite rock bands, the Eagles. I was a big fan of the Eagles in 2008, that year especially because I saw them in concert. They had a new album out, so I was listening to a lot of their music. And, I had this new idea of a video review that James and Doug were doing, and I thought, well, maybe I could do that kind of thing, but about this band I'm really into. So from late 2008 to like spring of 2009, I put together a 7-part video series called History of the Eagles, which is too funny to me that the documentary they put out in 2013 or whatever that was has the same title. I like to think that they got it from me because someone from their camp, or label, found my videos because they were all taken down for copyright infringement. Which was perfectly appropriate because that series, or whatever, is nothing but a clip show, and it's absolutely unwatchable, and I will never re-release them. It's just bad. It's not fun. It's not entertaining, and I get a lot of things wrong. So, but what it ended up being was a practice run. Was putting myself in front of a camera, recording narration, finding clips, editing these things in Windows Movie Maker, which, man, that is a crappy program, but at the time it worked for me. And the other thing that led to it, the third thing I guess, was that I was a big fan of B-movies. That started for me in high school. I was in the movie making homeroom, and we didn't really make a lot of movies when I was in high school in that homeroom. It was really the movie watching homeroom. And so it would be my friends and I, we would just bring in goofball movies we found, and we would show them to, this is all when we were juniors and seniors, so we were subjecting freshmen and sophomores to our eclectic B-movie tastes. But most of them went over really well. I remember Maximum Overdrive was a big hit. And one of the movies that I brought in was Braddock Missing in Action 3, as I was then and still am Chuck Norris fan. With Braddock, I had these funny ideas where I would pause at certain moments and make fun of stuff, or I'd pause on certain screenshots that were funny for whatever reason, and we'd make jokes. And when I would have friends over at my house for like a movie night or something, and if I put that one on, I'd do the same thing there too. And in fact, I remember one time I had a friend who was doing a movie night at his house, and he asked me to bring Braddock so I could do that bit over there. So I sort of knew that these jokes I were making sort of worked, at least to other B-movie fans. So basically, that first review is simply an expanded comedy bit that I did for my friends back in high school. That video also got a lot of views for some reason. Like, for a long time, that was my most viewed video. And, as I got better, as I progressed in my video production technique, I wish that wasn't the case. You always wish the most recent video you make is the most popular, but it's never the case. So that was the first episode. The second episode was Warrior of the Lost World. This was in like fall of 2009. Warrior of the Lost World was another one from my high school days. This was a friend of mine. He brought in Warrior of the Lost World, and we watched it. The actual movie, not the Mystery Science Theater episode. In fact, I wasn't even aware that Mystery Science did that movie until shortly before I started working on my own review. So I watched the movie, wrote my review, and then watched the Mystery Science Theater episode to make sure I wasn't ripping anything off. Then we got into the Snake Eater movies. And the Snake Eater movies, those were some of the most fun to do in the early days. By that point, it would have been mid-2010. I enjoyed those because, again, going back to my high school days, the story I tell in the Snake Eater 2 review is true. I discovered that series because I was in a dollar store and I found Snake Eater 2 on VHS. In fact, I probably have the cassette. I still have the cassette around here somewhere. So I found the VHS, and I knew my friend was a big fan of Metal Gear Solid, and I knew Snake Eater or whatever was a term from that movie. So I bought the VHS. The movie looked like crap, and I thought, this will be funny. I'll just give this to him. So I did, and we watched. I think we watched that movie. And again, that movie-making homeroom of ours. So shortly after the Snake Eater videos, I reviewed Rambo First Blood Part 2, which really in the grand scheme of things is not a B-movie. And in the history of my channel, of all my videos that are up, that is my, without, and it's not close, worst video. I hate that video, and I should take it down, but for the longest time, it was also one of my most popular videos. So, for a really long time on my channel, the two most popular videos were my first one, when I had the least experience in front or behind the camera, and the second most popular was the one I totally botched the job on from start to finish. From the writing, to my narrating, to I got parts of the story wrong, I got details about the movie production wrong. I don't anticipate watching it again. And I don't advise any of you watch it either. It's embarrassing. So in 2011, I started Season 2 of the B-Movie rollout. We opened with Death Wish 5, RoboCop 2, and The Vindicator. And The Vindicator was kind of fun because I released that just a couple of days before, of all people, James Rolfe released his review of that movie. That was just too funny. For me, it was great. Felt like, I beat one of them to it, and it was cool to see him talk about the same subject matter that I was talking about. We finished that season with Escape from LA, which at the time, I sort of built up and teased that review, the whole year. And I wanted that one to be really special. Like we did my brother and I did a really goofball sketch at the end of the last episode before Escape from LA to kind of which was very reminiscent of what a lot of early content creators were doing, who also did like video game reviews or movie reviews. They would like tease the next episode at the end of the last one. So that was the end of season 2. But I do know that in 2012, I wanted to get back to music. I wanted to start talking about rock and roll, classic rock, the bands I was listening to. I've always been a huge music nerd. I'm a rock and roll nerd. And I just felt like now I had been doing the show long enough, the movie reviews long enough, that I could take that approach to artists and albums and anything else in rock and roll. I don't really think the series found its feet until I started reviewing albums. And the idea behind that, reviewing albums, was that I would take albums that had flopped or failed or whatever and tell those stories, because there's no shortage of documentaries or books or articles about famous albums that did really well, that everybody likes. I wanted to talk about the records that, well, sucked, didn't work. Not to be salty, but kind of similar to what Todd in the Shadows does with Train Records. We've covered the same album once. We both reviewed Kilroy Was Here by Styx, and again, I'm proud that I got mine out first by about 6 months. I think the videos are similar, but also very different. We focus on different things, and that was kind of a relief. But that show of his, Train Records, he's talked about Billy Idol's Cyberpunk, Van Halen 3, and Mardi Gras by Creedence. All 3 of those were potentially on my chopping block of what I wanted to eventually talk about. I'm not doing those now because he did such a good job, especially with that Creedence episode, that I can't add anything. I mean, he said everything that needs to be said about those albums. So speaking of working on projects that are similar to shows you're currently watching, in 2013 I started working on board game reviews. And doing the board game reviews was really fun, and I still have more of those I mean to get to. So there is going to be like a 3rd series of those. Probably not till next year, but we'll see what happens. Because I definitely have some good ones I have to get to. But I was doing those right around the same time the Spoony one, Noah Antwiller, was doing the Black Hole of Board Games. Those are some of his best videos. I loved that he was working on those. But I was also nervous because he had so many in his videos that like he was going to get to some of the ones that I had, and I really didn't want to have to give up any of the board games because I had to physically buy those, and that'd be wasted money. And he tweeted once about the RoboCop VCR game, and it was such a relief that I had got my review of that up first because I thought he was going to review that one, but he didn't, so it was a moot point. So in 2014, I launched season 3 of the B-Movie rollout, and I had a lot of help writing those episodes from my brother, and I tried to give him credits in all those videos, and we had a lot of fun that year and the year after watching some of those movies. I remember in particular Delta Force 3 was really fun to write, with them coming up with the Mike Norris facts, and later when we did Plague of the Zombies, that was another one that was really fun to write, and I'm really proud of that one. So the ones that were straight movie reviews, mostly I wrote those with my brother. Those were meant to be a little funnier. But season 3 was the first one where I tried to switch up the style, telling the story of H.B. Halicki, giving my opinion on Timothy Dalton as James Bond, looking back at the film serials of Undersea Kingdom from the 1930s, different stuff. That made that last season real enjoyable, which I needed because I had a lot of writer's block. I I think free jack, especially during the editing. It wasn't even writer's block with that case, but it was just like the editing became so arduous that I really stopped enjoying that part of the process. For a long time, I enjoyed the editing process because I should have said this way earlier, but a big part of why I wanted to start making these videos is because I wanted to teach myself how to edit. The first 2 seasons of the B-movie rollout were me learning how to write, record, narrate, and edit. So by 2015 or 2016, doing these movie reviews, well, I knew how to do that stuff, and it stopped being fun, especially the editing. And that's why I decided to, close up the movie reviews at the end of 2016. Part of season 3 was the Smokey and the Bandit review, which is one I'm definitely very proud of. I didn't tackle too many straight comedies, and that one was an interesting one to do. And I think that's my most controversial video because it has a lot of views, and I think it has a lot of views from people who expected I was going to be nice to it, because there's a lot of people who comment on that video who don't watch any of my other videos, who comment on that video and say that I don't get it, or I'm taking it too seriously, or this or that. And there's a lot of people who did not like my take on Smokey and the Bandit. I stand by everything I said, but I think it's just a little funny that of all the subjects I've talked about over the years, the biggest lightning rod, the most controversial take I had was on the quality of Smokey and the Bandit 3. Yeah, you never know, I guess that's the point. You never know what's going to trip people up. In 2015, I felt I was really hitting my stride with the music episodes. I produced my Grace Slick video that year. I'm really proud of that one. I think I did a good job telling her story as best I could. And I did a video on the Kings, which was a lot of fun because that's a one-hit wonder band that, unfortunately, very few people have ever heard of. And I did that video, and the guy, Mr. Zero from the Kings, has a pretty active Facebook presence. So when I finished the video, I emailed it to him, and it was awesome. He got back to me. He watched the video. He said he liked it. Obviously it wasn't perfect. I guess I got a couple of things wrong, which is fair. But he emailed me back, and he shared the video on his page, and he was really nice about it, and he sent me some stuff in the mail, some signed swag in the mail. I have a Kings CD that's signed by him and David Diamond. And that was just really rewarding. That was really cool to do a video on a band and to know that that band saw the work and appreciated it and gave me props for it. That was really encouraging. And one of my favorite moments of hosting this show. The only other time that sort of happened was I posted my video retrospective of the Romantics. I posted that video on the Facebook page, and their official page liked it. I don't know if anyone from the band watched it, or maybe their social media team just appreciated that someone was talking about them. The other thing that was kind of funny that happened that year was in my Grace Slick video, I mentioned her song Rock Myself to Sleep, which is absolutely about masturbating. And I make a little joke about how in the 80s there were a ton of songs about masturbating. And I cut it together in a little montage. The 80s. Lots of songs about masturbating.
I stole
I put that video out with that little compilation there, Todd in the Shadows released his one-hit wonderland of the Vapors turning Japanese. And that song everyone thinks is about masturbating. So he also mentions that the 80s had a lot of songs about masturbating, and he put together his little compilation of songs that sound like that.
The 80s had a lot of songs that sounded like they were about some self-loving.
So it was really funny that we had a similar bit. I am certain he did not see my video and copy it. I'm not making that accusation. I'm just glad I did it first. But it is cool to kind of think along the same wavelength, and it's validating, I guess. An odd thing to be validated on, I'm aware, but that is what it is. The B-movie rollout, for all intents and purposes, is completed. That project's done. We did 3 seasons of it. I'm really proud of it. And every now and again I'll get a Twitter message or a YouTube comment asking when I'm going to start that up again. And I just don't see it. Between copyright stuff on YouTube and just the huge amount of movie reviewers that are out there, and also to the level of quality that some of these other content creators have gotten to, I can't match that. I don't know if you guys watch Red Letter Media, but what those guys do with their movie reviews is unbelievable. James Rolfe, again, he's just gotten better with the years. What he does with rental reviews now, spectacular. I don't watch him anymore, but Doug Walker has had production value and sketches in all of his movie reviews for like 5 years now. I can't match that. And even someone a little more down to earth and a little more straightforward, Alison Pregler doing movie nights. Again, really funny in a way that I can't match, and production there, a set, a theme song that's not stolen. These are things. These are all shows that are so much better than what I'd be able to produce. So I don't even understand why anyone would want me to get back into that with movies. I think my music show is passable because there's less people who do this sort of thing. And they don't do it in a style that I do, or at the very least they don't do it specifically about the genre that I talk about. So since the start of 2017, this channel has been all about music and the occasional board game review. And I'm really happy with the videos I've put out over these last couple of years. I think I've definitely hit my stride, and now for me, I'm just in the process of going through my backlog of ideas of music and trying to get as many of them done as I can. Unfortunately, as I get older, life gets in the way. I have a much more serious job than I did when I started this show. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in my personal life that takes a lot of my time. So, unfortunately, there's not going to be an increase of content over these next couple of years. It'll inevitably be a decrease. And a decrease in quantity, not quality. Hopefully always an increase in quality, but a decrease in quantity. And that's just, a reality of life. This has never been about making any money. This has never really even been about building a big audience. This has just been about having some fun with music that I enjoy and stories I like to tell, and stories that my friends don't want to hear me tell. Earlier this year, the channel had a big copyright scare. Tons of content creators dealt with this. A bunch of channels had their monetization ripped away, which isn't a big deal to me, but a bunch of my videos got blocked. Videos I worked really hard on, and videos also that were also sort of old that I can't go back and re-edit, so I had to appeal. And thankfully some of those appeals made it, but, you know, others didn't. So, you know, existing on YouTube, knowing that copyright violations can show up without warning and without review, and they can totally dismantle your channel and erase all the work you've done in a heartbeat, that's disheartening. It kills motivation, and it kills the drive to continue forward, at least in this style. So I'm not going to give up immediately. I definitely have, like I said, I have a backlog of episodes I really want to work on, and I really want to do a good job with each of them. And like I said, I'm definitely going to get to some more board games, either late this year or next year. I know I've gone on way too long, so for those who stuck with me all the way to the end of this video, in the same way that's of those who stuck with me all the way these 10 years, I just want to say once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thanks for sticking with me. Keep watching. I'll give you updates of the future of this channel as I figure them out. Thank you very much for a great 10 years. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but the past has treated me very well over these last 10 years, and I really appreciate you guys watching.